Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the interview room. We are so grateful that each and every one of you have decided to take your time out of your wonderful day to be here with us this evening. We have with us members of the Cold Case Foundation, as well as John Ramsey and Kurt from the group that has been working alongside Mr. Ramsey for many, many years. And we'll go through and let you know that tonight is part 4 of a multi-part mini-series, for lack of a better term. And quite frankly, this could actually go into maybe 10, 15 parts. We're not really sure yet. But the Cold Case Foundation, we have been working behind the scenes with Mr. Ramsey and Kurt's for about almost a year now, just under a year. And we have had direct access to the majority of the materials in this case, over 23,000 files that we've had access to. And tonight, we're going to take on the next piece of this puzzle. We're going to talk a little bit about Burke. We're also, because I know Greg and Dean had an opportunity along with John to have a one-on-one with him for a little bit. And we just kind of want to give just a little high-level overview on where he fits into this situation. As you know, the DNA has cleared him many, many years ago. And so, but we just want to make sure for you, the audience, that we're checking that box off for you from the Cold Case Foundation's position and giving us what our observations are. So, with that, above me is our executive director, Mr. Greg Cooper, who was the former unit chief at the Behavior Science Unit in the FBI many, many years ago. We're not going to tell you how old he is, but they did have wagons and horses back in that time. And right. He and John Douglas worked together for many, many years, as well as many other criminal profilers in the business. And so we'll start with John, and then we'll go to Dean. We'll start with Greg, and then go to Dean and Kurt and Zach, and then we'll leave Mr. Ramsey last for some brief introductions. So, Greg, tell the audience who you is.
All right. Well, thanks again, Chris, for having us, and it's an honor to be with such an elevated group, elevated in their own eyes in some cases. Including myself. It's really been a privilege to work with Mr. Ramsey and you gentlemen as we've reviewed this case. It's a very touching case. It's a case that's historical. It touches the hearts of America. It's probably among the top 2, 3, maybe number 1 well-known cases in the country, and it still stands as unsolved. And it's our privilege to be able to take another look at it and apply the many experts that we have available to us in our organization, as well as apply our investigative methodology and a model that we use that's referred to the 10 filters of profiling. One of the opportunities we've had also here recently in the last week or two is to be able to be introduced to Burke and Mr. Ramsey's son, his youngest son, who was also in the home on the evening of the crime. And what a gentleman, a young, handsome, kind, very perceptive, intelligent young man, and it was just a real honor to get to know him and become more familiar with him and acquainted with him, and talk with him a little bit about his experience as a result of this horrific event that occurred to their family. He's among what we would refer to as secondary victims within the victimology consideration. JonBenét considered as the primary victim. and John and Patsy and Burke would be considered the secondary victims. And the impact of this crime has affected them and their family from that evening that it occurred. And it tells us something about the offender as we consider these things, and the whole circumstances, the environment, the situation that are associated to this particular crime. And we're going to talk about all those things as we have begun the process through the 10 filters. And we've attempted in the last several weeks to address victimology, and that being the first filter. And we've been through that process, and there's a couple different things. Just if you want me to take a quick minute to review that or come back to it, Chris, after we introduce everybody else.
Yeah, why don't we come back to it, Greg? Let's
Sure.
we'll get Dean up here to introduce himself, and then we'll shoot it right back up to you, Buck.
Okay.
Dean?
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to being here tonight with everybody as well. And I've had the opportunity for the last going on probably 20 plus years to work in different capacities, the last 14 years with Greg as he started the Cold Case Foundation. It's just been a real opportunity to see how these different opportunities can be impacted. We've been working on this. I know that when we had the opportunity to begin to work with John Ramsey and his family, we've really been looking forward to this. And I'll echo what Greg said about Burke. It struck me a couple of things maybe that I'd just share. One was, you don't know how a person's going to be other than what's put out there in the media. And I was struck, this is definitely a young man. I could see where he was 9 years old at the time. Very interested in all the things that were happening. When we talked to him about his sister, I asked him, I said, how did you perceive your sister? What was she like as you were growing up? And especially when we looked at the area of the pageants. And I thought it was an interesting response that Burke had, that, that was really not the prominent thing that he thinks of when he thinks about his sister. He immediately started talking about how they played together. He talked about the different sports and things that they would do, play in the yard, all of the things that you would expect to have in place with a couple of kids growing up in the same house together. And he just did a great job, I thought, of talking about the various things and giving us some insight and his experience that day. I think he was pretty quickly removed from the home after JonBenét was found, and so actually I think it was prior to that, wasn't it, John? That
yes, yeah, we got him to a safe place pretty quick.
Yeah, with all the things that were happening. The interesting thing, and I'm excited for us to get into this, I think, is that as people kind of stay with us and work through that we're working through this case, and still stuff is unfolding. So we're still digging through some of the material, but we're trying to share it with you and share it with you in a way that would really kind of take you along the journey as to how we look at cases, and particularly using this model of the 10 filters to give us a framework. And so part of what we'll do, as Greg said, is today we're going to take off from the victimology portion of it and begin to work our way into some new areas. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But it's always great, and I enjoy the interaction that we get as we kind of are all sometimes thinking out loud. And so that's also a good part for that you get to hear as we discuss some of these specific details of this case.
It's awesome. Thank you. And make sure everybody, just so that we're not getting feedback when you're done speaking, make sure we're all muted out. And then, so Kurt, tell everybody a little bit about your group and how you got involved.
Good evening, and good to be here. I have been muting out because I got a lot of thunder going on in the background, so I apologize in advance if you hear that. But I'm the former investigations division commander for the Colorado Springs Police Department, where I used to work with Lou Smith. And as you all know, Lou was the one who was called in early on in this investigation to help solve this case. Unfortunately, Lou lost his battle with cancer in 2012, and he was always a believer that this case could be solved, especially through DNA. And as a result, he got in touch. He left all of his files with his family, and his family got in touch with all of his friends and former colleagues, and basically said, "Hey, would you guys pick this ball up and run with it?" And that's where we're at. So now I'm the law enforcement lead for the Smith family team, and we've been working with John and his family for quite some time now, for probably since about 2012, and Lou before that. So
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you being here as well, because you guys have played a pivotal role in not only all the great DNA. I don't think the public knows just how many individuals you folks have actually spent your own money and sending it through the labs to eliminate people from that DNA list. And so we appreciate you being here, and of course, your insight is extremely valuable, and we're so grateful for that.
glad to be here. I want to mention one thing. You guys have
Yes.
talked several times about 17,000 files or 18,000 files. I think as far as files goes, that's correct. But just to let your audience know what that converts to in pages, I think our team has somewhere between 180 and 200,000 pages.
Right.
And we're talking mountains and mountains of information. So just to put it all in perspective.
And that's why we got the guy in the middle, the wizard.
There you go.
Zach, tell everybody, and so everybody knows, we purposely keep him in the background because he's so smart. He would memorize every word about everything we say. So we have to keep him in the back, like the NSA, no such agency. Zach, introduce yourself, bud.
Hello, my name is Zach. I've been an investigative analyst with the Cold Taste Foundations for 4 years this month, and tonight I will be providing support to the gentleman you see on camera.
Awesome. And that is Zach right there. We love that guy. You know, we can't tell you how many cases his brain has been involved in that has really brought a whole new dynamic. And we're missing Butch tonight. Just a little bit about Butch. He's under the weather, but he was with the behavior science unit, the analyst for the FBI for many, many years, worked with Greg, worked with all those individuals down there in the hole underground in DC. But Butch and Zach are on the same team. And we also have some tools that we've utilized to go through those thousands and thousands of pieces of information that have come into this, all on behalf of JonBenét. And it couldn't have happened as well, like Greg said, without the gentleman in the middle, Mr. John Ramsey, who has been a complete 100%, if not 2,000% open book in relationship to this case and wanting it solved. This man has been going for the last 30 years, it will be in December, to find justice for his daughter. And for those of you who are just joining us, we would encourage you to go watch the first 3 episodes that we've already put together. This is episode number 4. Remember that. We're going to go through this very methodically, like Greg said. So you may want to just get some popcorn, some coffee, or whatever you need, because it's going to be slow, but it's going to be complete. That's our commitment to Mr. Ramsey. So that said, John, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you. I'll tell people that you guys greatly understate your credentials. And we're very grateful for your help on this. Between the Smith team, which Kurt's part of, and what you folks can do, I think it's an amazing group of investigators, and for that we're very grateful.
We appreciate that very, very much. And so also for the record, you'll see that we actually produced the reports, the DNA reports and everything in the last couple of episodes. So those of you who may be questioning the DNA, there is John, his son, and his wife have all been cleared on the found DNA. And wouldn't you think by now they would have him in a set of matching bracelets if in fact they had a match. So again, that's not the case. We're trying to identify and not put into jail. That is the police department's responsibility. We're trying to identify different avenues that perhaps could have been overlooked. That's what the Cold Case Foundation does. And as Greg will tell you here in a second, because I'm going to turn it over to Greg and Dean for, again, tonight's presentation. And you know, you'll get a sense of exactly what we do and how we do it. So, Greg, back at you, bud.
Thanks, Chris. So just as a quick reminder of the audience, and for those who have been following this for the last 4 episodes, this will be a quick review for you. But as we all know, it's the more we review something, the better we remember it and then can identify the relationship between the principles within that concept and the other ones that we'll be discussing. And the first one, as we mentioned, has been victimology. And that is to try to understand as much as we possibly can, as many sides as we can, and from as many sources as we can, an understanding of each of the victims involved, meaning their lifestyle, their interests, their personalities, their relationships, their work, their religious background, their hobbies that they may have, friends that they have. We're interested in trying to understand 3 aspects of a person's life. The personal life, rather the public life, the personal life, and then what we don't often get access to, but we do as investigators, criminal investigators, is that secret life that people engage in, who will eventually, in most instances, if that secret life is composed of antisocial behavior, eventually it will be played out at various levels privately and in some cases publicly. And that's when law enforcement gets involved, is when we take a look at those behaviors as they've violated crimes, as an example. So that's why we're involved. So we look at each of the victims' lifestyle first, and then the life and things that are happening within their lives proximate to the time in which the crime's been committed. Because we're trying to assess the risk level, that is, meaning the risk level of what's the probability, what's the level of risk that these individuals have posed through their own behavior and others' behaviors, that either elevate the risk, reduce or mitigate the risk, or have done nothing to affect that risk level in the environment, situation, and circumstances that they're in at the time the crime's been committed. So the first thing we look at is personal lifestyle. And in each of the instances, the personal lifestyle, we would suggest that we're talking each of them, meaning JonBenét, Patsy, John, and Burke, would be considered low risk primarily. The only thing that would elevate risk level for any one of those individuals are various situations and circumstances or environments that they may be in proximate to the time in which the crime has been committed. But as it relates to lifestyle, we would consider them low risk. And what that tells us in this instance, as in generally when we apply this principle, it immediately gives us as we assess it. It gives us an idea as to the potential relationship between the victim and the offender. So in terms of lifestyle, because they're low risk, we've determined through thousands, millions of cases, that the lower risk the victim to becoming a victim of a crime like this one, the lower risk, the higher the probability that there is some connection between the victim and the offender, that the offender knows who the victim is. Chances are the victim may also know who the offender is. Did I say that? I just reiterated that. So that the offender knows who the victim is, and most likely the victim knows who the offender is as well. There are various levels of that relationship. They may know each other intimately when they're that low risk, or it may be a casual contact between the victim and the offender. And the victim may not have any conscientious realization that they pose, that is, the potential offender poses a threat to them. But the environment, situation, and circumstances can elevate the otherwise low risk level of the risk level of a low risk victim because of opportunity, planning, and various circumstances that can elevate the risk level based upon what the victims may be doing in the moment proximate to the time in which the crime is being committed. With that in mind, we would believe and do believe that the offender is known, most likely known by the family. They're not total strangers, or at least has had some connection and would remember or recall there may have been some contact with that offender. The offender knows the family very well in this instance, is very familiar with each of the members of the family and each of the victims that we've identified. So immediately, as a result of that quick analysis, we go into much greater depth, obviously. The expectation would be that there's a relationship, that the victims have been specifically targeted by the offender. They're not victims of opportunity. They're victims because of personal relationship, and they've been targeted for a specific reason. And part of our role is trying to determine what that motivation is, or was in this instance. Why were they selected? What was the effect that the offender anticipated to accomplish for their own personal satisfaction, and the effects that they may be subsequently able to witness while watching the effects of the crime upon those victims. So that's where we started off with, and that just kind of gives you a quick review of where we start off with this evening. So low risk victims, anticipation that there may have been certain circumstances where you could suggest that there may be a movement toward a medium risk level, but that was only because of specific environments or situations or circumstances that could have impact that otherwise very low risk lifestyle. And through no planning or specific effort by the victims themselves, but by way of opportunity, an offender can take advantage of what may elevate risk level based upon those circumstances through their planning, methodical planning, expectation, surveilling, etc. So that's the victimology, just as a review. And then Dean's going to pick it up, and we're going to be reviewing tonight through our discussion 3 more filters. And Dean will go ahead and start that review with this very effective PowerPoint presentation in the area of initial contact site, crime scene, and disposal site. So take it away, Dino.
Sounds good. Well, as we get started tonight, I do recognize, I believe August 6th will be JonBenét's birthday. Us, John. So this has been a long journey, I know, for you, and we're always very honored to be able to partner and support what you've been doing. And our hope is that through this process that we'll be able to get some real answers and be able to find some solution to this case. So let me real quickly just identify our partnership that we have created with Veritone. And it's interesting, everybody's talking about this volume of work and all of the case material, and it can be overwhelming. And this is one of the things that we deal with on all the cases that we participate in, and that is just so much information comes in. And so historically, where we've been is we've had to put individuals in a position, our analysts, to go through each one of these painstakingly through all of these cases. And we'll look at the information, identify stuff, pull it together, correlate, do all the different aspects that need to be done there. And what Veritone has enabled us to do is to take that process and really in real time go through the various aspects of the case and find information much quicker. It is not replacing the role that we would have as investigators or analysts, but it does open up the door for us to very quickly find and identify things that prior to this took us a lot longer to do. And even today, we were in meetings on 2 different cases, and our ability to quickly identify stuff, or if we weren't sure, go out with our analysts and find things, is really just amazing what this technology has been able to provide for us. So we're really excited about that, and looking forward to sharing some things. And there will be some things maybe along the line tonight that Zach will be jumping in with some information as we're talking, as the conversation develops. So hopefully you will enjoy this. As Greg mentioned, we follow the 10 filters of profiling, and we will not go into all of these tonight, but we use them to be able to take the case material and work it through these various filters. So I know somebody tonight is going to be sitting there saying, well, what about this? What about that? Be patient. We will work through it. But it's very important that we start at the top and slowly work our way through this. And as information is made more available and we find answers to things, we'll be able to bring those to the table. So tonight, the 3 areas that we'd like to focus on, and we keep these separate initially because it's really important in an investigation that you don't start moving everything into one bucket and just saying, oh, I know it's all right there. In many cases, the initial contact site, the crime scene itself where the homicide takes place, and the location where the body is left or disposed of is all the same location. But there are a lot of times when it's not. And so what we want to do is always look at these separately and allow the evidence that is there to really kind of collapse everything into where we may be able to say, okay, all 3 of these locations are the exact same location. And so tonight what we're going to do is we're going to systematically start looking at this case through these various filters or lenses as we kind of break the information down. So before we get to the home and to the location, we want to spend a little bit of time tonight talking about what we would call pre-incident behavior or potential initial contact sites prior to the crime. So Greg talked about earlier the idea that JonBenét being known to this offender, or the fact that the family may actually have crossed paths in some way with this individual. And so tonight we want to take a few minutes to get started and really break this down and say, okay, if the crime we know happens in the residence, but there was previous contact between the family, JonBenét, and the individual who, or the offender in this case, what are some of the things historically, pre-behaviors that we can look at and begin to kind of break it down? So what I'm going to do is kind of target these and then talk about, we'll kind of open it up to the group as we work through this initially to say, okay, how does this potentially fit into an area where that might happen? So let's jump into the first one, guys, and that is the ongoing remodeling of the home, John, and I believe we had two different remodel periods of time. Initially in 91 to 92, we had the kitchen remodeled. Then from 92 to 93 was the second remodeling project that was done in the home. Is that correct? Oh, you're muted.
Yes, that's correct. It was an old house built in 1927. It had been added on to in kind of a weird way, and we wanted to make it more compatible and functional. And so our remodeling project took place over 2-3 years, not every day, but it just took that long to get it cleaned up and straight and the way we wanted it.
So does somebody want to jump in and talk about where doors that might, as far as this pre-initial contact, how that might play into this?
Yeah. So, John, kind of give the color in relationship to the children, what kind of exposure they would have had during this remodeling to anybody coming in and out of the home, that kind of scenario.
Yeah. Well, we lived in the house while it was being remodeled. We were able to do that, but Patsy used to say her main task was to keep the kids from hurting themselves and getting hurt. There were holes in the floor and walls torn down, that kind of thing. So she really focused on keeping the kids safe and was able to do that. But it was not it was not an easy task.
And how long did the first one? Let's talk about the 91, 92, if you recall. How long? Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but probably most of the year, as I recall, maybe a year and a half. I can't remember. A remodel is not clean and quick. You have to tear out and decide what to do with the pipe that's going through the wall, which you didn't expect, and things like that. So it's a slow process. But it took a good while, year and a half, I guess. I don't exactly remember, but it was a significant amount of time.
Do you recall if you were running that project, or was that Mom, Patsy?
Well, we had a contractor, and I guess I was involved with the contractor in terms of what was being done, not so much Patsy. And I don't remember specifically day to day what I did, but I was there pretty much every day for a little while and watching what they're doing and asking different questions and so forth. But Patsy wasn't involved with that directly.
And obviously the general contractor hired subs to come in and out of that house.
Yeah, there were a lot of people in and out of the house.
And this was over a 1-year period, the first time.
At least, yeah.
Okay.
At least a year.
Did you meet any of those individuals? If you recall?
No. Yeah, well, yes and no. We'd not normally meet them, but if we struck up a conversation with the painter or that kind of thing, we got to know them a little bit. But they worked for the contractor, and we really had to work through the contractor.
Okay. And the second one, 92 to 93, was this a new contractor, or did you work with the same gentleman?
Well, we worked with the same one for a while, and then we switched at the last part of it to a different contractor.
What was the reasoning for that, if you recall?
Well, we were, I guess, a little frustrated with the first contractor at the end. we thought we were finished. We had been paying him all along, and he said, "Well, I got a few little bills I need to pull together and get you to take care of." And we said, "Okay, fine." Implication being it wasn't much. Well, it was $10,000, and we were like shocked that was a few little things he had to get taken care of, and it just kind of soured us on the relationship. So
Karen lets me pick out the paint colors. That's about as far as I could ever get to. So
well,
we hear
that's a real privilege.
But could that have created some type of grudge in any way, shape, or form with anyone?
It's possible. There was that's possible for sure, and it wasn't a bitter dispute. We paid the bill and said thank you very much. We'll call you if we need you. The other interaction we had with a sub was we had to get a permit to remove an external staircase, which was put in, I guess, so they could, whoever owned it before could rent the third floor. It was a kind of an attic bedroom, and it was super ugly. And we didn't need it, didn't want it, and we had to get a permit to remove that external stairway. And we went before the zoning board, and one member of the zoning board was kind of nasty, and he voted against it. Said, "I vote a big fat no. You can't do that." And it's like, "Oh, okay, whatever." But he was voted down. And then later he wanted to remove the hardwood floors, or take the hardwood floors out and keep the wood. And we said, "That'd be fine, go ahead." But I thought that's kind of weird that he would feel comfortable asking for that after being so nasty. But we didn't deny that. We said, "Sure, you can take it out and you can have it." But I always wondered about that a little bit.
Now, at this point, JonBenét is like 3 approximately, and Burke's like 6 maybe.
Yeah. That sounds about right.
Did Patsy or you ever notice anything that was just kind of, didn't sound right, didn't look right, extra attention going to the kids by anybody or anything?
No, we never did. Patsy was a little bit of a helicopter mom. She really kept her eye on the kids, particularly with that construction project going on. But no, we didn't. Now we learned after the fact, after all this happened, that a number of the subcontractor labor that was in our house had ankle bracelets on. So they weren't necessarily upstanding citizens. So we didn't know that at the time.
So they were being monitored by the state.
Yeah.
And Zach, we have paper on that in the system. This is where the system comes in.
So I haven't seen specific mention to individuals with ankle bracelets. What I have seen is a statement that there was a camcorder stolen from the house. Do you recall that, John?
Oh man, no, I don't recall that.
There is one individual in particular who had an ankle monitor on that actually supported his alibi when he was contacted by investigators at the time. He used it as his alibi, and they were able to confirm that he was in Boulder, but he wasn't anywhere near the residence. So there was an individual who was eliminated based on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
were there any? Just a question there, Chris.
sure.
Do we have any information, or John, did you have access or privy to any information about any of their backgrounds? What types of offenses they may have been involved in?
No, I didn't. None. I didn't have any information on that.
And how many do you think that there were? If you were just
I don't know. I just heard some had ankle bracelets.
Mm-hmm.
Kurt said there's one perhaps that's for sure documented, but
Sure.
I didn't get, this was all after the fact, after
Right.
it happened. And,
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot of crazy information that was flowing like
Sure.
through fire hose. And
How
that was
many? I'm sorry.
well,
How
that was
many?
one of the pieces that came through.
You bet. So, how many subcontractors do you think that your contractors?
Oh,
with,
gosh,
generally?
they're probably, well, we had electrical, we had plumbing, we had plaster, we had,
A lot. Yeah.
yeah, there were probably maybe 6 or 8 different skills over
Mhm.
time. Not necessarily all there at once, but
Yeah.
a lot of little detailed stuff.
So between 91 and 92, and then following that 92 and 93, there may have been additional subcontractors that came into work based upon the needs for different jobs.
Yeah. Yeah. That's correct.
And how would they have access to your home?
I don't recall exactly, but I know the contractor would have had a key, and perhaps the subs that were there every day had a key. I know there are a number of keys that were out.
Sure. You
Hey,
bet.
John, is it fair to say that your dealings were primarily with the general contractor, and with the
Yeah.
subs, it was just kind of a high end passing?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
Was
And that's
the key
common. Yeah.
box changed on the home after following all these remodels, or would it
No.
have just been?
Afraid not.
Mm-hmm.
I had another question for you, John, and that is, if the contractors and people were in the home, but they didn't have necessarily contact with your family, what was the decoration and the like photographs and things about your family? Did Patsy have it still? Did she try to keep it real homey? Pictures of the family, pictures of the various places. Would that be cool, or was
Yeah,
everything kind
No, it wasn't torn down totally. I mean, there were pictures up, and we tried to keep it semi-normal to live there.
So
And,
if somebody came to your home as a contractor, where they would be able to see who your family was, some of the things that would be normal
yeah,
that a family would see. Maybe
Yeah,
have
that's-
at home.
that's correct. And we were there, so they could figure that out pretty quick.
You-
I think something to keep in mind is that even in 1996, there were quite a few programs in place to marry up individuals with their skills who were on probation or on parole with people who needed an electrician or needed a finished carpenter or a number of trade skills, just like there is now. And those programs go on in Colorado and pretty much every state across the country, where you're trying to link people up with contractors that need skilled labor. So it's not uncommon.
And Kurt, who manages those programs?
Well, it would be the adult parole or adult probation, mainly in Colorado.
Okay, so in theory, and also for the record, for the audience, we're taking notes too, by the way. So when additional information presents itself, we're not just talking about it. We'll get some answers. But so in theory, they have potentially in the system, they teach trades, and then when they come out into the public, they're monitored with an ankle bracelet, and they're maybe plugging those individuals into private homes throughout the community.
Correct. And some have monitors and some don't, depending on what crimes they committed. But I think it's real common across the country. Imagine that you're a general contractor for plumbing and you can't find plumbers, but you know of 5 or 6 guys that have plumbing skills that are on probation. that's an opportunity for you to get more work done. So that's what happened. And another thing about this is I think the Boulder Police Department did a pretty good job of trying to track down everyone that was associated with these general contractors. But there are lots of holes in the system. And if you ask them now, do you remember who this finished carpenter was, or who the painter was, or who the plumber was? They'll look at you like you're crazy because they don't have those records.
Interesting. Hey, Zach, real fast, if you recall, how many people so far have been eliminated from the DNA, from the authorities? I forget.
I don't have the number offhand right now.
You know what? I'll take a look. Kurt, do you recall how many your group has eliminated so far? And if any of those were individuals in the monitoring program?
Well, one for sure was in the monitoring program. We've eliminated over 30, but there are also other individuals who were eliminated by process. Were they detectives that were at the scene? Were they analysts at the scene? People from the DA's office, those kinds of things. And that number is up over 100. I believe it's 112, something like that.
Okay.
Well, maybe while Chris is looking, we'll kind of jump to the next one here, because once all of the remodeling is done, I believe in December 3rd, 1994, then your home was put into the holiday tour. And if I remember correctly, the way you described it, John, that it was kind of like a parade of homes, only centered around holiday decorations and decorated for the home. So I'm going to make the assumption that all of the family photographs and the way that you folks lived, all of that really is on display during this period of time, correct?
That's correct. This was a charity event to raise money for something. I don't remember what, but yeah, that was the objective. And we didn't, Patsy really decorated for Christmas big time, because it was going to be kind of a entertainment for people in a way, or so it was over the top, but that was done intentionally, but it was really done for the benefit of the charity.
And do you recall if it was 1 or 2 days?
I only remember it being 1 day, but I could be wrong. But it was not very long.
Well, I got the feeling from anything we could find online or anything related to it that it was a few hundred people came through, potentially up to 4,000 or 5,000, I think. And I wasn't real clear as to whether or not that was because there were a lot of homes involved in the process.
Right. Yeah, I'd say certainly hundreds is believable for sure. Thousands, I don't think so, but because it wasn't that big of a home.
Do you recall the accessibility? I mean, was it the entire home, or do you remember if there were certain points that
it was certainly the first floor and the second floor, the bedroom area, where the kids' bedrooms, and then the first floor, which is dining room, kitchen, and living room. I don't think, well, there's nothing in the basement because it was a basement, and nothing in our bedroom we made out of a third floor attic. And so that was not part of the tour.
Okay.
Sometimes on these tours, a record is kept of those people that come through as members of the tours. Did that happen with your situation at all?
Not specifically in our house. I think they had to pay to do the tour.
Yeah.
But the charity, in theory, would have had records of who paid.
Mm-hmm. Good.
But we weren't aware of it.
Okay.
So let's go ahead, Chris.
Just real fast on the DNA question. approximately 128 reference samples were sent through. And it was comparative analysis against the unknown male DNA that is still has not been identified. But so they pushed 128 people through that, including John, including Burke, including Patsy. And of course, the list just goes on. Howard, Olivia, Wolf, Holgeth, all these individuals. And what's ironic is everybody was cleared. Everybody's been cleared as the contributor to any of that. And what's ironic is John, even today, is still under suspicion. Yet, all these.
Yeah, that's of course the frustrating part. The police knew on January 15th, approximately 1997, that they had unidentified male DNA recovered from JonBenét's clothing.
Exactly.
And they kept that a secret because that conflicted with their conclusion that it was the Paris. That conclusion was reached on the first day. And that evidence was going to be a problem until they explained whose it was. And so they cleared people, but in fact, they were told by experts, look, you have, if the DNA is going to clear people, you got to clear the Ramseys. You can't have it both ways. And they just didn't see that. But, additional DNA was found in 2006, I think, when new technology was applied, and I believe so. There were two recoveries of this unidentified male DNA in different parts of JonBenét's clothing in 2006. That supported the DNA that was found in her underwear in 1987. Now we believe also that the garrote, which was used to strangle her and torture her, they did find recently male DNA on that, unidentified, which apparently was compatible with all the other DNA they found. So I believe we have the killer's signature in the form of DNA.
Yeah, that's a fascinating comment, John, because you're correct. January 15th, 1997, criminalist Dressel completed DNA testing of all indicated DNA profiles developed from JonBenét's fingernails and panties, revealing a mixture with the major components matching JonBenet. The test also determined, and I'm reading right from the report, the test also determined that in the minor components were from a single individual. Then the Ramsey family, at this point, 100% has been cleared from DNA source of this unknown male. So essentially, to your point, they knew back in 1997 that there was DNA underneath JonBenét's fingernails and on her underwear in her panties. And that was from PCR as well as STR testing. And we'll go into that later on because we've got DNA experts on the panel that can weigh in on this. But those references were pushed against 128 additional samples. And so that's where we're at so far. And now it looks like what you're saying is the garrote could also be a match to that unknown male DNA. And that's going to be pivotal because this is one of the things that we were talking about in episodes 1, 2, and 3. So not to take us off course, but stay back on now it sounds like we had a lot of access into your house. It sounds like people with criminal records had access into your house. Back then, there was no CODIS, so they may or may not be into CODIS at this point.
All right.
And so the genetic genealogy, but Dean, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I think looking at those as specific areas where people could have access to your family or at least contact with them. The next area we wanted to focus on is the studio. It's always struck me in this case that most of the general public think when they think of JonBenet, everything goes to the pageants and kind of the pictures that are out there, and that's where it is. And as we've worked with you and kind of looked through this, I'm struck with the fact that that was a piece of what was happening in her life, but by no means the majority. I mean, she's not flying all over the country to be in these things everywhere under the sun and everybody. And I mentioned earlier, Burke brought that out as well when we were talking to him. So when we think of, just for a moment, not the pageants for a second, but just the dance studio itself, any insight you can give us as to contact? What was that like? Was she going down there on a regular basis? Was she interacting with a lot of people? Were there a lot of parents or people watching? What was the environment that we're talking about when we talk about the studio where she was learning there?
Yeah, I never went there, and it wasn't a long, extended time that she did that. I don't think it was very long that she was in this dance class. Patsy tried to let the kids experience things that they wanted to experience and try, and that was one of them that JonBenét enjoyed. But it wasn't that big a deal. She also took piano lessons, violin lessons, and that kind of thing. So I don't remember that it was that big a deal at all. But she did go to a dance class several times anyway. I don't think it was over a year or anything like that.
How many?
Go ahead, Greg.
Just a question. How many pageants do you think that she may have participated in?
Maybe 6 over a couple of years, year and a half.
And at those, that would be a public setting, correct? People
Correct.
would come from various areas, various interests. How many people would you say attended on an average any one of those pageants?
Oh, they were small, maybe 50 people, maybe not that many, but we always assumed just parents and grandparents.
Sure.
Looked fairly innocent. It wasn't a big deal. And the photos that came out were all taken by the pageant sponsors. We didn't take those, but she did do a couple parades, which was fun. They did a bicycle parade in northern Michigan, where we would come for vacation. She was in the Christmas parade in Boulder that year.
That the one on the 11th of December in '96.
Yeah. Yep.
And how big of a crowd? I mean, can you kind of describe what that would have been like?
Again, I didn't see it, but I think it was a long parade. She was on a float, and I'm sure there had to be several thousand people watching the parade.
And why was she?
Unfortunately, was on the float.
And why was she selected? Was that through the dance school then that she was selected?
No, it was. I think. I'm not sure. I'd have to look at the pictures, but she might have been one of her. She had done a pageant that December locally, and it might have been
because she won or something.
Related,
maybe
something she won, or her. Yeah, I mean, every child won something. That was just part of the deal, she won an all talent award, which she was very proud of, because I used to tell her that's what matters. It doesn't matter if you're the prettiest or whatever. You just need to work on your talent. And but she was on a float, had her name on the full name on the float, and I could probably find a picture, and that would remind me what the parade was, or what the float was about. And I don't remember. I don't know if there's other little girls on that float or not, but she was certainly predominant.
Something else to keep in mind with this is that the Little Miss pageants it's really an industry. There are a lot more people involved. There are a lot more kids involved. And there's, Little Miss Florida, and Little Miss Arkansas, and Little Miss Texas, and New Mexico, and on and on and on. And when you really start to pay attention to it, you see that Little Miss pageants participate in the Rose Parade and some, lots of events like that. So it's a lot bigger than you think.
Yeah. Well, it was something that JonBenét and Patsy had fun with, and JonBenét was very extroverted, so she had fun with it and enjoyed it. It was fun for her to do, and it was a fun mother-daughter thing for them. So I kind of kept my mouth shut on the whole thing.
I think we talked about it a while back. You were kind of talking about the fact that the timing of it in relationship to Patsy's diagnosis with stage 4 cancer and not knowing the future. And that was something she had been in a pageant. And so there were just a lot of things probably happening there. It sounded like relationally mom and daughter were trying to do it. And I think you also kind of described that was such a busy time with the business and all the things that were happening. So you were just trying to make it to some of the appointments, I think was kind of the way, at least the sense I got in your talking.
No, that's correct. Patsy had been gone through a year of hell, basically, of chemotherapy treatment, and was declared in remission, for which she was, profoundly grateful. But I think, so I never objected when she did these pageants with JonBenét or took her to New York with other mother daughters, even though she was only 5 years old, because I felt she was trying to pack as much mother-daughter time in as she could, given that even though she was in remission, the outlook wasn't great.
Yeah. I'll kind of jump to the next one here, and that is thinking about the neighborhood and kind of interpersonal relationships. Can you give kind of a feel for, was there a lot of interaction with a lot of neighbors, or was it more kind of your social life a little bit separate from the neighborhood, or how would you describe all of that at that time?
Well, we didn't really know our neighbors very well at all. We knew the neighbors across the street. They were an older couple. They would babysit occasionally for the kids and take care of our dog if we were going to be out of town. And then, of course, we had the Whites who lived a couple doors down. Their kids were the same age as ours, so that became a natural bonding. But other than that, we didn't know the neighbors and really didn't have any interaction with them. We were on an alley, and then behind the alley was another set of homes, and they backed up to the alley as well. And we didn't know anybody that I wouldn't. Yeah, so very little neighborhood interaction.
The other area that we talked about is, I know on December 23rd, there's the family Christmas dinner that was held at your home. You had caterers and several guests that came to that. Can you kind of summarize a little bit did you do a lot of entertaining at the home, or was that kind of a unique thing, or?
Well, it was fairly unique. We'd have people over for dinner. I had a good friend of mine that I was in school with that lived in Denver. He'd come up for dinner one time with his wife, and but we didn't do a lot of entertaining. With this Christmas dinner was for kids and their parents, and they came, and we had Santa Claus come, and I don't remember. I guess we probably had food, but I don't remember. It would have been I remember it might have been that party. I don't remember, but the caterer flaked out on us, and at the last minute they couldn't bring whatever food they're supposed to bring. So Patsy ordered tacos, I think it was, from a local taco place. Said I need like 40 of them, quick. Yeah.
A common Christmas dinner.
Yeah, that was Christmas dinner.
It's like the Griswolds.
Yeah, it kind of was. But no, it was just a family event and started early and ended early. So
The last area we wanted to kind of focus on real quick as far as pre-incident contact, initial contact opportunities would residential service providers. So thinking in terms of, everything from people who do yard work to people coming in. Can you give kind of a sense of that over the 3-4 years, leading up to this, both in volume and, same people? Was it alternating, those types of things?
yeah, well, Patsy had a cleaning lady that would come every week or two and help clean the house for the day. We had a yard guy that would mow the grass, and there was some interest in him in terms of some attention he gave JonBenét, and that was, of course, we didn't know it at the time, but that came up later. A young guy, and that was about it. We didn't have. It was kind of a low maintenance house once it was remodeled. Our yard was not very big, and other than the cleaning lady, I don't remember anybody that was in and out of the house regularly as a helper.
Okay.
Do you remember any major repairs or significant repairs that you may have had within the last 6 months prior to the event, where you had to have somebody come in and fix anything in your home?
Not that I recall. I mean, the only other incident we had that was with a painter, and he had done some painting in a bathroom, and we had something. It might have been that before that open house coming up, and he left the window open, and somehow the shade or the shutter hit the valve on the tub or the shower, and it ran for a while, and it flooded down to the second floor.
Oh,
And I was a little upset, to say the least, when I discovered that.
yeah.
But other than just being angry, I didn't.
Are you sure this wasn't an episode of Meet the Fockers
Sounds like
with
it.
the wedding?
Yeah, I know. And I don't remember how that happened.
Yeah.
What he did caused the leak, but it was bizarre, but it happened. And it was because he left the window open and the wind was blowing. And I'm sure he left the window open to let the paint dry. But
Of course, he volunteered to pay for the damages.
oh, of course.
The last area before I jumped into the next section is kind of thinking about, because I think, we go through periods of time in our culture and things shift. Some of us can remember back in the day where, you got up in the morning and played outside all day long before you came home. And, now we're living in an age where a lot of times kids are in the home all the time. I got a sense in our conversation with Burke that the kids like to play outside, play ball, to do things. From your perspective and whatever you could maybe think about, but what would that have looked like? In other words, would they have been outside by themselves in the yard playing around, people driving by seeing them, or was it more somebody would have been out there? Or give us a kind of a context of the environment situation at that time.
Yeah, they tended to play in the backyard, which was not really that visible from the street, but could be. A lot of little neighborhood kids would come down. There were several that were kind of regulars that would come down and play and hang out. And I think we had a swing set back there, if I remember right. And that was just kind of where they played. They didn't really migrate to the front yard much, as I recall. And they sort of stayed close to home. Now, they'd be in and out of the house a lot, too. That was pretty standard.
Okay. Well, before I jump to the next section, Greg, do you want to talk anything about the significance of any of these, or just in general, 30,000 foot, kind of why we would look at stuff like this and be interested?
Yeah, I mean, you bet. Dean, I think for the purposes of the audience, again, it helps them to understand why would an agency, when they begin to investigate these cases and they don't have immediate suspects or people of interest, where are they going to go to try to identify potential nexus of in a transaction where the victim and the victim's family has connected somewhere with an offender. And the purpose of looking at and considering some of these areas is just simply to try to identify some of the possibilities as to where that nexus may have occurred. And there are a number of areas here, as would be with any family. As it relates to a crime like this, we're particularly interested in looking at what's happened, say, within the last 6 months, any significant connection, contacts. And while we know that the remodeling, for example, had taken place a number of years prior to this event, we know that here in Utah, we had a very famous case, Elizabeth Smart, where a worker was hired by her father to come in and do some work in their home, when I believe they were also doing some remodeling and some work. So oftentimes families, through their own innocent and unknowing behavior, can open the door to some of these relationships and contacts of potential offenders, not knowing at all, having any idea what the ulterior motive may be for the individual. And that includes associations, neighbors, friends, or would-be friends. It's when you get into investigating these crimes, as much as we think we like to know that we know people and those relationships, and we would never suspect people who have come across those lines. We've found so often in our criminal investigations that expect it when you least expect it, that oftentimes it can fall right there before you. You got a wolf in sheep's clothing, and then you're looking right at them. And so we have to be very familiar with that. John, any thought on that?
Well, we were naive. We lived in Atlanta, Georgia, all our married life, and moved to Boulder because I had to for work. And in Atlanta, we were much more paranoid about safety. And I remember one 3 or 4 painters that I hired, and I remember how I found them, but they came, did a nice job on the painting. And as they're cleaning up, I noticed my wallet was gone, and there was things missing. And I confronted them, and they're like, "Well, yeah, I don't know." And so, "You're not going anywhere. I'm calling the police." And I called the police, and they showed up. And I don't think anything ever came of it, but they obviously had access to the house. They stole things.
You bet.
And plain as day.
Yeah.
But in Boulder, we thought we lived in this safe, la la land, and it wasn't that way at all. But that was our fault for being foolish.
Well, I beg to differ a little bit with you there. I think I'm sure you'd done some research before you moved to Boulder and found that it was a very low crime area at the time, particularly as it related to these kinds of things and that particular neighborhood. And typically, crimes like this, we find that, like I indicated, expect it when you least expect it. You don't expect it because you're presuming the best. We all presume the best of people generally, I think.
Exactly.
You know,
Yep.
I mean,
agree.
we know that we don't have an interest or desire to hurt anybody. Therefore, neither does anybody else, and particularly the people that we associate with or have had contact with.
Exactly.
And it's very innocent, and presuming the best of people and of society.
Yep.
And typically 80% of society is exactly like that. They're good
Yep.
people. They want to make a contribution and present the best that they can toward the public.
Yep.
And it's 20%, maybe 20%, and less than 20% when it comes to these types of events that represent the worst of society.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's like
I know.
isn't it? Going out and hiking and doing things, you can see all kinds of animals, you can engage in things, but every once in a while there's a predatory animal that all of a sudden turns on somebody and, man, you've got a mess on your hands, and
Yeah.
looked at,
Well,
today we saw the video that's come out, I think out of Yellowstone, of the gentleman that was flipped in the air by the bison, and how many people, live up there. And boy, there were times when people would do things around bison that you just go, what are you thinking? These are wild animals. But in that case, he was like a whole bunch of other people at a distance, and all of a sudden something came into that bison's mind to, come after him. And I think that's the piece that people don't think about a lot in these kinds of. So.
No, it's I've always given people trust till they've proven they don't need it, they don't deserve it, and that can be risky, I suppose.
You bet.
All right, guys. Well, I'm going to shift gears here and kind of run through some stuff fairly quickly, and we'll kind of have people jump in as you want to. Let's talk for a moment about what we would consider to be then from what we know about that night and the activities. We believe that the suspect's first encounter and contact with JonBenét would have been in her room, based upon the fact that as the family came home from the dinner that night with the Whites, that she was put to bed somewhere probably between 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. The setting is that this is the night before you guys are planning to fly out. And it's going to be on a private plane. So I know you had mentioned before, John, you're watching the weather, trying to make sure everything's okay and planning to get up early and get things going so that you could fly out. And I believe, if I remember correctly, you were planning to meet your other children part way and then all go together on up to Michigan. Is that correct?
That's correct. And then we were going to spend 3 or 4 days there with my older kids. They were going to go back to Atlanta, and we're going to take the little kids on the Big Red Boat, Disney Big Red Boat. We had booked that for several days as part of the trip.
Kind of Christmas holiday. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about for a moment then what we know about the initial floor. And I'm going to do just a quick overview of it. So this is a layout of the second floor. And we've got 2 bedrooms down on this end over here, if you can see my cursor. I believe this one down here was Burke's. Is that correct? Or was it this one here in the first one?
Burke's was on the where the twin beds are on the far right.
Right here. Yeah. Okay. So this would have been Burke's bedroom. And then you have here is a set of stairs going up, which would have come out to the third floor, which is where your bedroom was. And that was the only thing on that floor was your master suite up there, I believe, correct?
Correct.
And then as we move on down, we have a total of 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and a laundry area. We've got another bedroom over here. This yellow highlighted area would be JonBenét's room. And then this was a balcony or deck area that had a door that came out onto this deck area.
Correct.
There were 3 sets of stairs on this floor that I want to point out. The up and down stairs here, which would be the main, what I think most people would consider to be the main stairs from downstairs coming up to the second and third floor. And then over here was another set of stairs that didn't go down, but they did go up into your bedroom. And then the staircase,
yeah,
correct?
yeah.
Okay. So as far as this area is concerned, if we look at initial contact site, this individual has to gain entrance into her bedroom to get her. And we have basically 2 possible ways for them to do that: through the door out in the hallway here, and then a doorway off of the balcony. So if we move on then and we look at this more specifically, we also know that this outside balcony, or the covered deck as it's highlighted here, just real quick, was this locked or unlocked, or was there kind of a history? Anything you can give us?
Well,
that?
the history I learned not that long ago was Patsy's sister had gone back to the house to get clothes for us. Within a few days of, we left that morning after we found JonBenét, never went back. And she reported to the police that the door to that porch, the latch had been taped over. And she thought that was very weird. And I didn't know that till not that long ago.
And what would the time frame be on her finding that, do you think?
What did she find it, you say?
You said, yeah. So you guys left on the day that JonBenét's body was found.
Right.
You left there and never returned.
Right.
And so she went back. Are we talking within a week, 2 weeks?
No, it'd been within a few days. She flew out from Atlanta, where she lived, and it might have been 2 days, 3 days after we found JonBenét, but no longer than that, because we didn't take any clothes or anything with us. We just left. And so we asked her to go back and get us some clothes.
Okay. So one of the things that we talked about in one of our early sessions together, and I'll just kind of re-highlight this again, the yellow area is, we've tried to, based upon the evidence, isolate the movement of the offender throughout the home that we believe is there. We're willing to look at other areas if evidence comes in to show, but the idea and the concept is, let's not have this person moving all around within this home if there's no reason for them to. And I think as we've talked about it as a group, we've talked about that. So that's what I've attempted to do here with this, is just kind of highlight. So we have her in her room, and it's believed that the individual most likely would have taken her down the spiral staircase to the main floor. The main floor, just to kind of go around and identify it, you have this yellow area, which would be an area that would give direct and quick access through this entrance here to the stairs going down to the basement. There is this area, I believe you guys referred to it as kind of the butler's pantry area. Is that correct, John?
Yeah, it was just a level of halfway down to the basement that had a door to the exterior.
Okay. And we've got a garage area, and there's an outside door apart from the garage doors that would give access. And then from the garage itself, like many homes, there's another door that leads into kind of this mudroom. Did the family always keep this door locked?
The garage door?
Not obviously the garage doors, but this would be the side garage door. Was this typically?
Yeah, probably. I mean, there would be we wouldn't use that. There were two. There's another entrance, which I guess is maybe shown on the top of that garage sketch where that little gap is, there was a passageway for a dog, a little short, not very high door, but it was there, and it wasn't locked. It was just a swing door. And I know the police asked the kids if they ever used that to get in the house, and they said, yeah. But the other door, the door to the backyard, would typically have been locked.
And that would have been this. Which door would that be?
Well,
This one here.
it'd be where the door to the right or the south of the cars.
Okay. Yeah, right here.
Yeah,
And
I don't
with
see
the door inside the garage that led from the garage into the kind of mud area, would that have been typically locked?
Well, theoretically, yeah, but doesn't mean it always was, because the garage doors were closed, and I wouldn't say we were not. The house had a lot of doors and windows, and the kids would come and go and in and out, and I didn't routinely check to see if they were all locked before I went to bed.
And then I think you also had mentioned at one point in our discussions that there was an alarm system, but pretty soon after you guys moved in there, it just kept getting tripped for people were setting it off. And so that wasn't something that you typically set as a routine then.
Yeah, no, he didn't. JonBenét actually set it off once early on, and it was one of those alarms that was so loud it drove you out of the house. That was the theory.
Sure.
It was horrible. And so he set it off. We were having dinner, and all of a sudden this air raid siren goes off, and she was standing by the keypad, said, "This makes my ears loud." Yeah. So Patsy grabbed her and took the kids outside, and by then the police showed up, and I had to explain I didn't know the code because we just moved in. And I don't know how to turn it off.
Sure.
But so we didn't use it. It was horrible if it
Okay.
ever got set off.
So then this would be the den and the study area right here.
Yeah.
This area here
I'm
would,
not seeing your cursor for some reason.
Yeah, I'm not either.
oh,
No.
I'm sorry, that's not coming up. Okay, so just off the side of the where the cars are, straight below there, it says bookcase in there. That
Yeah.
would be the den and area.
Yeah.
And then if you out of that door and walk through, that would walk you through the kitchen, correct? And if you went
Correct.
straight, go right out to the front door.
Correct.
Okay. And then if you're in the kitchen, which is down that first white section down below the yellow section, that would take you into the formal dining area. Is that correct?
That first dining table is actually kind of a kitchen dining area.
Kitchen dining table. Okay. And then
Yeah.
the one below it then is the main dining area.
Correct.
And then off to the side of the main dining area, would that was kind of a little solarium area.
Yeah, kind of just got a little sun porch. It was a small porch.
And then up above the solarium and between the foyer and there would be the living room area with the piano.
Correct.
Okay. So right now what we have is we've got the quickest way for this individual to get down to the basement area is to stay within this yellow section. We're not saying that we can't add to it, but there's no reason they could, once they're in the room with JonBenét, they have her, they bring her down through that and can then easily drop down into the basement area. And what we have down in the basement area then is the blue section would be the play area that had the train table in there. There was kind of a hobby area in there. Above that is the laundry area. and then there's a storage area up above that, and then in the yellow section coming off the stairs, you move into what is referred to as the boiler room area, and then into the wine cellar. Correct?
Right. Correct.
And we've only got one set of stairs that lead into this. And I believe there's only one window in this basement area that somebody could get in and come out of, correct?
Well, there were two really. The at the far end of the train room, the blue area,
Yep.
that set of windows was, I think, three windows sets, or set of three windows, and then there was a window. It shows over the kind of in the boiler room. I don't remember it being
Would
there.
the boiler room window be large enough to get in and out of?
Yeah,
person?
you could have. It was small, but you could have. I mean, the ones on the train room side, I used that to get in the house once because I'd lost my key and nobody was
Yeah,
home.
no, that will come up later. We're going to be looking at that in some future episodes related to the timing of when that was discovered that there was, and who discovered broken glass, and some things related to that. So the analysis that we have on JonBenét's bedroom then is that this would have been the initial, or appears to be the initial, contact site with JonBenét. There is not any, at least initially, any forced entry that anybody is aware of. Wasn't being focused on during the what we would classify as the kidnapping phase, where everyone was assuming that she had been kidnapped. And I was wondering if you could kind of comment on this, because according to statements that we have in there, you had indicated that when the family went to bed on December 25th, that the doors and everything had been locked, and that they were still locked on the 26th when everybody got up. Anything you could, because you just now were talking also about the fact that some of these, was there a routine that you would go through the house to check, or?
No, unfortunately there wasn't. We came home from the Christmas dinner. We're going to get up early. We were tired. We'd been up since dawn 30 that morning, opening presents and stuff. So we just came home 9:30ish and went to bed. And I didn't check the doors were locked or anything.
But I mean, was that unusual, or was it something that you didn't?
No, we were naive. We just thought we lived in a safe neighborhood. It wasn't. Normally we came in the garage door or the garage entrance. We never went in and out of the front door. We never went in or out of what we called the butler pantry. We didn't have a butler, but it was could have been could have been that, I suppose. We never used that door. The door to JonBenét's patio or balcony we never used it. Now the kids may have gone in and out of there, but we normally, our routine was we came home, opened the garage door, pulled the car in, closed the garage door, and things were secure. That was our mindset.
Yeah. So any of the areas like the butler pantry or other areas or doors was not something that you guys were hyper vigilant about? You just focused on areas where you normally came through.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, because we didn't use those doors hardly ever. So.
So if we kind of look at the crime scene itself, we're looking generally at the entire home, 6,866 square feet with multiple levels. No signs of forced entry that were reported by the officers, at least initially. Body was found in the basement wine cellar wrapped in the white blanket. The death was caused by strangulation with a garrote and blunt force trauma to the head. There was duct tape that had been placed over her mouth that I believe you said when you found her, you described to us that she was wrapped in the white blanket. And can you give us a little bit of a description of that and kind of what happened there?
Well, when I found her, I opened that door to that used to be an old coal cellar, and she was right there. But she looked cared for. The blanket was wrapped around her, relatively orderly, and I thought she was asleep, and she looked asleep. I didn't see. The only thing I saw was that she had tape over her mouth, and her arms were tied above her head. And I immediately took the tape off her mouth and tried quickly to get her arms untied, but I couldn't. It was too tight. And I began to, I guess, understand that she wasn't just asleep, but I was just so relieved when I found her. It was a rush of relief for, 5 seconds, I suppose, and then it became obvious this wasn't good. But I didn't see the garrote. It was so deeply buried in her throat that it was not obvious to me. Didn't know about that till later.
Okay. And then we know that her wrists were bound with the cord, her body was fully clothed, and then the crime scene, and when we talk about that, we're talking about the entire house, really we would consider it to be contaminated by a lot of individuals prior to her discovery. You had, in addition to the police that were coming in, I know you'd indicated that you called friends, family. I believe the pastor was contacted. So we had a lot of people kind of converging on the overall large area here of the home as you guys were trying to process through what initially was thought of as a kidnapping. That'd be correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So if we look then, and we'll kind of jump now to what we would, as I said, we're looking at all three. So now we want to look at the crime scene itself and do an analysis there. And so where we're going to start now is in the room where her body is found, and we'll kind of back our way out of that to try to determine if this is the primary location where the actual crime itself takes place. So again, just reminding everybody of this area here, which is where the blue area is where the storage and playroom and train is. The yellow area and the bottom yellow section, which says wine cellar, being the actual room in which she's found. So this is the door that you were talking about, that as you came into the boiler room area, we're able to see that. And when this door was opened, JonBenét's body would have been found there. This is the blanket and the duct tape that was left in that room after you had left the room and taken her out of there.
Yep.
And so then if we kind of begin to look at the evidence that existed within the crime scene itself for staging, we would look at the ransom note that was found in the stairway, despite there not being any actual kidnapping. The fact that the body is hidden in the home, despite the note claiming that there was kidnapping, and no apparent effort to remove the body from the premise, would all fall into that. And Greg, I don't know if you want to talk about that real quick and highlight that from a staging perspective, or
Yeah, usually the purpose of staging is to make it appear as something that it is not, to appear that it's one particular type of a crime versus another. And interestingly enough, what we have in this instance is the effort, the appearance that there's effort to create a staging based upon the evidence. And the only evidence really that suggests that is the note that's been left. And we're not going to go into detail on all the issues that, and to go back to what John has talked about when he first walked into the room, et cetera. We'll be doing that on another filter. But suffice it to say that whomever was responsible attempted, for whatever reason, in the moment, to create a set of circumstances to make it look like something that it wasn't. This was never a kidnapping. There may be an element there that suggests that in the mind of the offender, he's trying to create it to look like a kidnapping. But for whatever reason, if he was ever sincere about that and intentional about that, he had plenty of time to do that. So for some reason, he's decided to back off in the home and either go back to the body, or that may have been something that he did subsequent to finding or subsequent to leaving the body in its discovery location. And we'll go over these things in more detail another time. But this is not a kidnapping. There may have been consideration or fantasizing to begin with about a kidnapping because they went ahead and took the time to make it look like one to begin with. But something in the mind of the offender changed for one reason or another. And we can talk about that on another episode. And I think it's important to point out here, anytime a crime is committed, there's got to be three things that are present: a desire, the opportunity, and access. There's no doubt that there's a desire to commit the crime. And there's no doubt that an opportunity is present in this instance, but he has to have access to the home. And those are the things we've talked a little bit about this evening. He either has access because he's already in the home, or he gained access into the home before and made arrangements to get access after everybody retired for the night. Or the individual has been in there because they have the ability to get access to the home at will, because they've been in there before. And they've planned this thing out meticulously because they knew that in the moment when they got into the home, they're not going to make any distraction or cause attention by anybody in the home. So most likely they went into the home and nobody was there and they're waiting. But they had to have access. They took access either by an open door or forced entry. And it doesn't appear to be any forced entry. It doesn't mean that an individual has not made access prior to this event in the planning stages. And going back to this issue about precautionary steps that we either did or didn't take, or do or don't take in our own instance within our own residential concerns and issues. What happens with victims generally, particularly low-risk victims, is that through innocence, and you may say negligence, not reckless negligence, innocent negligence, we get involved in habitual and pattern behavior. And the same thing is true with security issues. There's certain pattern behavior that we do follow or don't follow, depending on what that pattern is, that turns into habit to elevate the safety precautionary measures within our environment, whatever that environment may be. And that includes people driving down the road. They've got to take control. But most people in a low risk category are not over concerned about these things unless they've been exposed to it before. They've either been the victim of a crime, they know somebody who's been a victim of the crime, or they've been reading about a crime, they've been exposed to it on television, and they imagine themselves in that situation, and they start taking precautionary measures in doing so. So depending on the mindset of the victim, they will or will not engage in certain precautionary measures. And it's not something to look at and find responsibility in, but to learn from, to understand that any of us could be caught in a similar situation. I have caught myself in numerous situations where I have opened levels of risk to either myself or my family because I failed to take certain precautionary measures. Fortunately, nothing happened. So I just want to warn the viewer that there for the grace of God go I, that we don't attempt to find blame. We're trying to find understanding. And through that understanding, identify those events and or contributing factors that contributed to the commission of the crime. And keep this in mind, that the crime was committed by a particular offender. It's not the family that committed this crime in this instance. It's an offender that intruded into this family environment. And I think it's very important that the audience consider that. We will get into much more of our rationale as to why we are absolutely convinced that it is an intruder that came into this environment. It's not a resident that was part of the environment, but somebody that had access to the residence, that gave themselves access because of circumstances that allowed them to do so, and because they had the mindset in order to commit this crime and take advantage of that opportunity.
But we getting
And if
close.
the DNA, no, I was just going to say, just on top of, I mean, that what Greg is talking about, just to dovetail into his thought process, we're going to get into why what we're talking about here, we're going to be able to substantiate significantly the things that perhaps got overlooked. Back in the time, you cannot, we don't cast blame, but back when this happened, the individuals were doing the best that they could do based on the circumstances and based on the experience levels that they had. But in retrospect now, all these years later, the reason, if we can go back to the colored slide real fast, Dean, or how many more slides do you have? Maybe I should ask that.
I've got like 2 more, and then I think 2 or 3 more, and then we'll have a wrap up, and I can jump to it then if that works.
That's fine. Let's keep moving then. I don't want to stall anything.
So the last area here that we wanted to look at were just behavioral indicators. And so that's the level of planning, which is evidenced by the ransom note, the knowledge of the home layout. There's careful creation of this kidnapping scenario, but a failure to remove the victim. And then we have the comfort operating within the home for an extended period of time. Those are all key behavioral. And then we want to look finally at the end here of the actual body disposal, or what we call the discovery site. So we have all 3 of these now in a package, and that is the body was found in the basement of the family home in what we call the wine cellar. The body was discovered by John at around 1 p.m. on December 26th. And when it was discovered, the body was wrapped in a white blanket. The body was concealed in a rarely unused room, and that the body was not removed from the residence suggests that the entire crime scene occurred within the home. So if we kind of look at this as a package, we feel like we can now take all three of those separate filters and bring them together and put the initial contact when this begins that night as an event happening within the home itself and concluding with her body being discovered within the home. So which one of the slides did you want to take a look at real quick, Chris? Which floor?
Just the color slides of her bedroom.
Of her bedroom?
Yeah. With the balcony. Right there.
Right.
That just real fast that for our audience who is just getting here. Number one, we've already done 3 episodes here. So you have to go back and watch the first 3 episodes. That will help you bring some of this into context. There's a lot of questions, obviously, that are coming into the chat. We understand that. We get that. But this is a very methodical process. We, as Greg said, as Dean has mentioned, we're going to get to all of your questions. Because trust me, we've been working with the Ramsey family for almost a year. We've asked those questions and probably 500 more. We have condensed this for the first time, quite frankly. We're actually doing this to the public, for the public. We usually do this behind the scenes with agencies all over the world, quite frankly. There are over 200 and something experts in the Cold Case Foundation, many of them women. I see comments about, where are the women on the panel? Well, you can't get any better in DNA than Francine Bardot. And she's in our foundation. She'll weigh in when it's her time. She doesn't like to get here early anyway, or others if as needed. So we're just going to ask you, please just be patient. We take all things into consideration, and it's our organization that is looking outside of the box. And that's why these boxes are color-coded. Because this is what the authorities were looking in, and they have not moved from these 2 colors in 30 years. But we're going to give you a hint. You'll notice this door that John talked about tonight, for those of you who said, well, we haven't heard anything new. Well, we heard something new. That door may have had tape over the lock mechanism and was left open. Now, here's a question. Is that going to correlate potentially to another crime somewhere in the neighborhood within a couple of miles that correlates back to a dance studio? Well, let's be open and find out, because we've done our thought process in this, and Greg, as he's methodically going through this, we're going to take our time, but we'll get you there. And we want you here on the journey. All right. So that's just continue to, trust us, stick to the process. There's an old saying, stick to it till it sticks to you. and John knows, John Ramsey, Mr. Ramsey knows, and I've told him straight up, how many times have I told you straight up, John, I'm just going to ask you, right? and I fire away, and he knows it. And as does Dean, and as does Greg and others, Butch, et cetera, that are involved in this. We're going to get there. I guess the bottom line is what I'm saying. So please be patient with us. But I trust that you'll be patient with yourself, because 30 years, Mr. Ramsey's been waiting for answers. And he's entrusted you, the audience, and us with skill sets and the science to get him those answers for justice for his child. You heard something new tonight, too. We've also interviewed with Burke. That young man was 9 years old. In episodes 1, 2, and 3, we give you a logical explanation why a 9-year-old would have not used a garrote for sexual gratification. That's what the evidence shows in this case. That is a different type of individual, not a 9-year-old boy hitting his sister with a flashlight and then tying a garrote around her neck for sexual gratification. We're dealing with a different predator. And we're asking you to think outside of the box now. Some of you have been studying this case for 30 years. Well, we're going to turn it back on you and ask you to do the same thing you're asking us to do. And I guarantee you the answers will come, because God will open up the windows and he will close some doors. And let's trust in that piece of the project. Okay? And we're grateful that each and every one of you are here. And we thank you for being here. Back at you, Dean.
That's what we've got for tonight's show. So we appreciate everybody being with us tonight. And if there's anything anybody's got as a closing thought or something, and you can take her away.
Kurt, you've been quiet over there. Zach, you've been quiet.
Maybe I can just ask one quick question, John. The door that goes into the wine room has sort of a wooden latch on top of the door, correct?
That's what I remember.
And could Burke have even reached that at 9 years of age?
Probably not.
Yeah, there's another good indicator why it wasn't Burke, on top of everything else that we've already discussed.
Yeah, no, to think that a 9-year-old little boy could do this knowing the facts is just insane.
It's
and
ludicrous.
Cruel. I mean, it's just
to deny. It's to deny the facts.
Yeah, to deny the facts. I mean,
Yes.
we know with 99% medical certainty a stun gun was used, for example. The garrote was applied multiple times apparently for gratification. She was sexually molested, based on the evidence in the coroner's report. And then it's any theory beyond that this was a subhuman, psychopathic, sadistic coward to attack a young little girl on Christmas night for sexual satisfaction. Anything beyond that, you're crazy. You're not looking at the facts. And the one thing I'll say too to fathers, I was asked by a journalist years ago, "What if you could talk to JonBenét? What would you say to her right now?" And I said, "I'm sorry, I didn't protect you. She knew she was loved. I didn't have to tell her again. She knew she was loved. But as a father, I felt I didn't protect her, and I would say I'm sorry. And fathers and caregivers, that is a primary responsibility for you, particularly in your home. Your home should be your sanctuary, your fort. Keep your family safe in the home. And that's a primary responsibility."
Well said. Zach, what are your thoughts?
John, the balcony door in JonBenét's room, what kind of lock was on that door?
Well, it would have been a standard push button lock, I think, with a key access.
Do you know if it had a deadbolt?
No, I don't
Okay,
think so.
thank you.
Not that I recall. But again, that was a door that hardly ever got used unless the kids went out there to play on the balcony. It's a second floor balcony, which would make it difficult to get in that way without a ladder.
John, let's answer this question. Who had the dog?
Our neighbors across the street, the Barnhills. We took the dog over there because we knew we were going to leave early in the morning, and so yeah, they had the dog. We had taken the kids' bicycles over there, and the Christmas Eve, or the day before Christmas, and then brought them over Christmas Eve, put them under the tree.
Okay. And Narrowly, so out of interest, who funds the Cold Case Foundation? You do. We're a 501c3, and we work with hundreds of families around the world.
Yeah,
and it's free.
Between donations and training opportunities that we're invited to come in and train.
And our organization was part of a presidential initiative called Operation Lady Justice, where we were selected as an example as a training organization for the first ever Native American homicide task forces to assemble to investigate over 6,500 Native American deaths of women around North America and the United States. Or actually Greg, Dean, myself, and many others were involved in training the first ever task force under President Obama first, under Operation Lady Justice. That was funded, then refunded by President Trump, and we were assigned to be those investigator trainers. So that's just give you an idea, and that was on a grant that was sent, and we were honored to be part of that history. Go ahead, Dean. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I think the Operation Lady Justice actually was a executive
Trump.
order.
Yeah, it was an executive order under Trump.
And then not Obama, but Biden then kept it going through that period of time, and it has continued through that. So I think it was actually right at the end. It was something that President Trump brought into the office. So just for clarification there, we're looking.
Yeah, thank you for correcting me. And so that just gives you an idea of what we're about. Greg, if you go to episode number 1, lays it out what we do as an organization. The Mayo Clinic approach, right? My wife says, you don't need a homicide investigator till you have a dead body.
Yeah.
And so
there's not a lot of people knocking our door down. That's right.
Yeah, we don't get invited to very many dinner parties. Let's put it to you that way. And actually, the reason Mr. Ramsey's sitting here is because I met Lou Smitten in 1997 as he asked us to go out and find some individuals that may have been in the neighborhood at the time. And that's how I got involved in this personally. And then, Greg, Dean, and I and others on the organization, we met John at a crime con. I walked up to him and I says, you don't know me, but I know a lot about you. And I handed him a card. He looked at me like, oh, who's this quack? He's here at crime con. What's going to happen? And I said, hey, if you ever decide to let us in, we'd love to help take a look at your daughter's case. And here we are today, almost a year later. And he has been 100% transparent. Kurt, the evident the fact that Kurt's sitting here. We have Veritone, who has assisted us with their tools and their tool sets. We can't thank them enough. All of this free of charge, by the way, just for the record, for everybody. Not one person. John's not written us a check. Kurt's not written us a check. You, the public, have written the checks. All of you who have donated to the 501c3, this is where we use this money to help individual families and victims to bring justice wherever that is. And we follow the evidence, wherever the evidence takes us. And I feel very confident in, and sad, quite frankly, that a young boy for 30 years has been under the microscope of killing his own sister with a garrote. It's unreprehensible. Because wouldn't you think now, once they get all that DNA, and his DNA is not on her in any way, shape, or form. And how do I know that? Because I have the reports right in front of me. Because we've had access to them. And I'm hoping that the right things will happen, and I believe they will. That's my personal opinion. That's my own personal opinion. And so I can't speak for my other colleagues, but I know they do too. And so, we're crossing our fingers that God will continue to guide us, and He will. You can't put limits on a limitless God. That's impossible. So let's see where He takes us on this adventure. And we're grateful that you're here with us. And so, John, you have the last word. This is about your child and your daughter. And then we'll go to Hawaii. As you know, I have that tradition. I gotta go out on a positive.
Well, I'm just so grateful that people care about my child. And, sadly, there's a lot of kids that are lost in our country that are forgotten, and that's not right either. So I'm hoping that in the end, before this is all obsolete, or, not, people aren't aware of it, that we can make some changes to the system so this doesn't happen again. This should not have happened. Our response to violent crime is pretty primitive in our country. We got to fix that.
Well said. Well said. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Dean, where are we going next on the next one? Number 5.
Take a look at the physical assault that took place. That'll be our 5th one. So
Physical injuries. Yeah.
Okay. Greg, anything final words or any from your position?
I just got to give credit to John to sit here allowing us to ask any question that we want, to talk about any aspect of this crime that brings very deep pain and suffering to him, to even have to answer the question, to even have to think about and go back through this process over and over and over again, to show you his level of commitment and dedication that he has given to his daughter and his family to ensure that this crime gets solved. That's his mission. That's his purpose. And he's shared that with us before. And John, let me just hand the time over to you, that what you have shared with us before with respect to what your ultimate purpose is.
Well, I've told people that solving this crime isn't going to change my life at this point. I'm 82, retired, sort of. And my life's, as a friend said, you're playing on the 16th hole. Don't forget that. But this solving the crime will be a blessing to my family and to Burke. For some reason, Burke has been targeted by the malicious media and the internet crowd as being the culprit, and that's just absurd. And the only way we'll clear that is if when we identify the killer. And there'll still be people that don't believe it, but that's life. But it's a grossly unfair thing, and solving the crime will correct it as best we can. And that's for my family's sake and for Burke's sake. It's traumatized him pretty good. So that's my purpose. I'm not, certainly in the beginning it was a desire for revenge, and I told people, you put me in the room with this creature and there won't be a need for a trial. That was just this rage and anger. But I also dealt with forgiveness and how do you deal with that in a case like this, and the horrible nature of it. But this chapter needs to be closed for the sake of my family. That's my goal.
Yep.
And it's our honor to help participate in that mission.
I'm grateful. Can't tell you how grateful I am. And I believe we'll solve it. I really do. Lou Smith said a long time, I visited Lou. Lou used to say, I'm going to get this guy, John. I'm going to get him. He solved over 200 homicides, and he had the credentials to believe it.
He's pretty good.
He was pretty good. Yeah, he was pretty good. He was kind of a real life Columbo. And towards the end, he said this case will be solved by DNA. And that was pretty prophetic, because DNA technology has advanced so far now that we've got the name of the killer. It's in the form of a DNA code. We just got to process it. And I'm absolutely convinced that'll give us an answer.
Well said.
You bet.
All right, everybody. Aloha. Thank you so much for being
Thanks,
here.
everyone. You bet.
We will see you on the next
Dylan.
one. Biakamai,
Yep.
as they say. Thanks, John. Thank you, Zach.
Yes, sir. Thank you all.
Everybody. Aloha.
Bye.
Hard working every day, I'm stressed out 24/7, babe. No timeouts, wish we could fly away. You and I go to our favorite place. Oh yeah, make special memories together. I'll be your company now and forever. I say we fly away, you and me, go to our favorite place. Feeling the sun on my face in Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. I need a summer breeze, some fresh air to put my mind at ease. No cares. You wanna come with me? Me and you go to our favorite tree. Are you ready now? We jump on a plane now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. Don't hesitate now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. We'll never come down. We're going away. Yeah, we're going away. You and me. Feeling the sun on my face in Hawaii. It's always been you, Jesus. It's always been you, Emmanuel. Who gave me this courage? What torch lights my feet? It's always been you, Jesus. It's always been you, Emmanuel. Who brings light to the morning? What flame lights my way home? always been you, Jesus. It's always been you, Emmanuel. It's always been you, Jesus. It's always been you, Emmanuel. Who saves me from trouble?